Okay, welcome to another Einstein Analytics, now the new name Tableau CRM Chicago Meetup. And thank you everyone for joining. We will learn about what is there in dashboards and lenses in winter 21 and beyond from our two awesome PMs in Salesforce realm, Anirudh Sridhar and Arthur Faber. Guys, can you introduce yourselves, please, and then take over?
Absolutely, Santani. Hello, all. I'm Anirudh Sridhar. I'm with the Tableau CRM product team. Almost said Einstein Analytics there. Formerly known as Einstein Analytics product team here. And I manage an area for Explorer, charts, tables, and everything, all that included. I'm seeing a bunch of folks from all over the place. It's great to see everyone here. Tampa Bay. Fun fact, when I joined Salesforce many years ago, even though Salesforce is headquartered in San Francisco, HQ, all my team was remote in Tampa Bay. So I would travel to Tampa Bay 3 times a year. And then with that same moment, I would travel to other parts of the East Coast as well. So I'm loving that time of the year when I would kind of go to Tampa and then from there on fly to Chicago, New York, all over as well. But super excited to be here and hope to show you everything that's exciting coming for Explorer in Winter 21 and then some things beyond that. Arthur?
Hey guys, I'll probably quit and rejoin right after the presentation, like the intro, because you guys can't see my face right now. I have to like reboot the software, but happy to be here, happy to meet you all. I'm pretty excited to be showing some of the cool features that we've been developing, some really exciting ones. So yeah, just happy to be here, joining from France actually on my end, so quite different from everyone. But yeah. Looking forward to chat with you guys.
Arthur, you're right now located in Paris, right?
Yeah, correct.
So we have from Europe. Ricky also joined from London.
Hey, Ricky.
Hello.
And I am, looks like it won't let Ring Central record my screen. So let me see, I can share my screen, but I'm not sure if the recording would actually work. So let me confirm one thing at a time. Sayantani, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. And I hope it goes through in the recording as well, but it's somehow.
It will, but right now we are seeing just the desktop for, what's the new Mac release?
Oh, got it. You did not see my slides?
No, we don't.
No.
Got it. I think that's going to be a technical issue. So I got a granted permission to share my screen and then come back and join. So give me just 2 minutes while I do that.
Sure.
Silly Catalina.
Let me actually look how I do it as well, because
you should just be able to click and it should be back.
Share.
I swear I'm still one of the only Mojave holdouts at Salesforce. I'm just like, I can't imagine spending, like, I'll lose 3 to 5 days at least. So I'm kind of scared to do that. I was thinking Thanksgiving break.
I didn't move to Catalina unless I got a new laptop.
I don't blame you.
No, I'm not even trying to do this. And I'm going to do this back.
Oh, let's try that again. Hopefully I enabled the right settings.
Mm-hmm. Yep, perfect.
Awesome. No, I don't want to leave this meeting. Somehow it keeps giving me that. Sweet. And if I can find the present button here. Awesome. Again, thank you, Santani, for the introductions. And again, I want to just start off by saying thank you to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for being an active participant in the Trailblazer community. And also really thank you for helping us help you make your customers successful. So it's definitely an exciting moment to actually come and see people who are using the product and really hear the feedback from them. So it goes a long way. Thank you very much. Now, as vibrant as I think this slide is, here's another slide that's equally vibrant. this is, you might have seen, most of you must have seen this at one point or the other. So this is our forward-looking statement. We're hoping to have a really nice discussion here. And some of those things might be things which are more coming up in the future as well. So you will see some forward-looking stuff. And my ask is that you please make your purchase decisions based on what's there in the product today. But with that, oh yeah, and then Santani mentioned this as well in the beginning. So Tableau. If you have seen at the Tableau conference, as well as the announcements, as well as you saw the rechristening of the Trailblazer community group to Tableau CRM, and that's basically Einstein Analytics is now rebranded as Tableau CRM. Now, Tableau, you all know Salesforce has made a big investment in Tableau with this acquisition. And Tableau is a leader in like enterprise-wide analytics. So like analytics for any business unit or any department in your company. And then where Einstein Analytics we would specialize in was to be really natively integrated with Salesforce and have you be embedded right within Salesforce, but not just embedded within Salesforce, also deeply integrated with your Salesforce workflows so that you can actually take stuff like record actions, bulk actions. You can have your actionable intelligent insights directly within your CRM. So now Tableau is representing the portfolio of analytics across Salesforce. So that's why we rebranded Einstein Analytics as Tableau CRM. But that's what it is at this stage, which is it's just a rebranding. And what we're hoping to do more is to really have 1 + 1 be more than 2. So we are finding opportunities to integrate and make it really easy to do stuff between one or the other. And really all of this at the bottom is all powered by Einstein. So Einstein Discovery is our advanced AI AutoML capabilities that's going to be powering all of these products that you see in the future. And again, I know there might be questions on this as well. I would say product marketing would be the best person to ask. I'm not aware of too much of the other details behind all the renaming, but if you are, I'm happy to connect you with someone in product marketing as well. So what I'll start with is I will walk us through what's new in Explorer, tables. I also want to touch a little bit about Einstein or Tableau CRM direct data, which is the live query to Snowflake, and give an update on what's happening there. And then Arthur will take us through everything cool and groovy about dashboards, what's coming up in Winter 21 as well as beyond. And in terms of questions, Anthony, I'm okay either way. I can either pause in the middle. I can take questions at any time, or I can do it at the end of my round. I'm fine either way.
Okay, let's see how questions pop up. So instead of just putting questions here, I would suggest you start asking questions in the chat window, and we will take one by one.
Thank you. Okay, so for everything to do with tables and exploration, we have a lot of new stuff actually coming out in Winter 21. Now, there's going to be hopefully very few slides and a lot of demos. So I just want to point out that on this slide, you'll see all the stuff that's coming around for tables. Tables continues to remain an important priority for us, and we spent, before Winter 21, we did some stuff around pivot tables, being able to do multiple measures. Now in Winter 21, we continue to improve tables with the ability to show hyperlinks and take record actions a lot easier by just clicking on it rather than having to open up that record action menu, the ability to freeze and unfreeze columns, and as well as the ability to expand and collapse different levels of grouping directly from within a dashboard. We call that collapsible tables. And then there's a bunch of other stuff that's coming on for Snowflake Direct. So what I'll do is, some of the highlights are here, but I'm just going to go straight to the demo. For that, let me open up my demo org. Okay, so this is my demo asset that I've built up. So let's start with one-click actions on tables. So in the past, when you had to take record actions on any cell in a table, you would have to hover over it. You would then see a small caret that you would click to open the record action menu. So the first thing you might notice is that the icon itself has changed. We've made it a lot more pronounced, and it's a lot more discoverable as you hover over it. And if you click on it, it still opens up the record action menu that you know. But what we've also done is added the ability to hyperlink any column that has record actions defined on it in a table. And if I click on it, I can also choose to click and simply open up the Salesforce record. That is one example. But we've also built in some configurability for this feature. Some of the other possibilities are that you can also choose to tell us what action would happen when you click on it. So we have a few different options. What I showed you was it opened the Salesforce record. In this case, if you see, if I hover over, I don't see any drop down for the action menu. Instead, if I click on it, it brings up that same record action menu. So in this way, you make the record action menu more discoverable by making everything highlighted, but you still keep focus on all of the actions. Whereas in this case, maybe there's the one action that is primarily used that you want to make really easy, but you still provide access to all of the record actions. And I'll go through also how do we actually configure this, but I just want to show some of the other possibilities as well. Another thing that we added as part of this was the ability to define actions on a derived dimension. Now this, for Winter 21, this still has to be done through the JSON. So what I did here was I actually created a new derived dimension in my data set called actions. And I had to download the dataset XMD, and then I copied the action section from one of the existing dimensions, and then I pasted it into a derived dimension section, and then I manually tweaked it. But once you do all of that, and then you re-upload it back, you can actually now have actions triggered on a derived dimension column. So opportunity name is an actual column in my data set, but actions is not. And one possibility that I see where this might be interesting is if you wanted to have kind of like an action column on your table. So you can have open record be on this side, whereas on this side, you can still have any other default action being triggered. So by choosing this, I can still open the record action menu here. Another possibility, which is there's currently a bug actually in Winter 21, which we're looking to fix, is we also allow record actions on image columns. Now what I have here is an image column that is actually a derived column. So what this means is I've used a string formula to kind of hard code the image URL, and that's what I'm rendering as an image in a table. But this also work for if you have a column in your data set which has the image link burnt in. You could also have the image being rendered, and you could also define one-click action on it. So imagine that this button could be actually clicked. Whatever this icon you choose can be clicked, and it will trigger that action. Now let me go by showing you how and where would you configure this. So I have opened up the table in Explorer, and the one-click table actions is in the formatting panel. That's where you access all your formatting options. The feature is at a column by column level. So you get to choose which column you want to enable one-click actions on. So I go into column and I choose my opportunity name. Under there, you'll see a new section called actions. Under actions, we already have actions enabled in the dataset XMD, which is why you see all of these options. But imagine if I went to stage, you will see that no actions have been set in the dataset XMD. So that is a prerequisite for Winter 21, which is the record action needs to be configured for that column in the dataset XMD. And if it is, then you will see the ability to set up one-click actions on it. So there's a few different options you can do. You hit, set up one-click options. You can choose to control what the click does.
Andrew, can you say that one more time? So you've got, someone for the MVP, someone has to go change it on the data set, actions level. They have to go ahead and do that first before this option shows up that you're showing, or did I get that backwards?
No, you got that exactly correct, which is what we did with this feature was to make triggering and discovering the actions in tables more easy, but setting up the record actions, that's still configured at the dataset level. So what you would do is you would still go into your dataset XMD, and you can do that through the Einstein Analytics dataset edit page, and you would set a record action on that column. If you don't set record actions on the column, you won't be able to do anything here. But once you do that, you should be able to see the different options for one-click actions. I guess now is a good point to mention that we are working on what we're calling data agnostic actions in a future release, Safe Harbor. And what that does is that allows a dashboard builder to configure actions on any column without having to do it in the dataset XMD. So we're thinking something like there'll be a button called configure actions. You can just simply go to it and it will show you the same actions menu and you can configure actions on it. And then
I think that's going to be huge because so many people are still kind of like admin,
yeah.
they don't have admin access for the org, so that'll be good.
Yeah, and it'll be data agnostic. And what we mean by that is it should work for Salesforce direct queries. It should work for Snowflake direct queries. Of course, for Snowflake direct queries, it will only make sense if you have some aspect of a Salesforce in your result set. So maybe either an opportunity ID augmented with other data coming from external data from Snowflake, but it should be possible for Salesforce direct queries as well. So you could, one idea is you could show a values table, which is being directly queried from Salesforce, and you could define record actions on it as long as you have maybe an opportunity ID or a case ID column in there.
So just to understand, you're telling me that using SQL in Einstein Analytics, I can now ask our clients to click and open the record instead of copying?
What I'm saying is for Winter 21, it's only available on EA dataset, so it's not yet available on SQL or Salesforce Direct.
Okay.
But coming up, I think in the next release in Spring 21 is what we're working on. Hopefully everything goes through, is the ability to also do it on other kinds of queries. And that at that point, you would be able to do it with SQL.
For me, what this solves is so many times, like, how when you would create a compare table or any kind of table, and you'd want to have them select it based on the name of the opportunity in this case, they'd have to click on the amount column, or it was really finicky about what they had to click on and do, and they're like, why wouldn't I click on the opportunity name? Why do why do I have to click in special places for it to emit that that filter to the rest of the dashboard? And so I think with this blue link, it makes it a lot more obvious, like it's more intuitive for the end user.
Awesome.
A point from Ricky, she is asking a question. Wonder if you can run an URL, show as image, and make it actionable. Have
call a URL, exactly.
And yeah, I have that issue. Have a button looking image as a derived field.
Great. Actually, you know what? I left a bunch of boxes here thinking there's definitely more use cases that I could think of. And I'm trying to think through that example. I think I did have that idea, but to actually make it a reality, what I'm thinking is you could have two columns in your data set. One is an image URL. One is an actual URL for where you want it to go. And you can define a record action on it, and the record action might look something like, let's see, do I have, oh, I gotta go to the edit screen.
And Ricky, just to clarify, all in one column, right? So it's something where you're like, let's just say you've got a derived field to choose the image, but on that same column, also be able to configure that action, and you've still got the dynamic, like you can insert, like if you're calling google.com/? and then with the little brackets and q equals whatever. Is it
actually I was just simply thinking you import something to your image library in Salesforce, and then you have that URL, so similar to when you just call that URL directly from the table and then convert that into a show as image instead of text, when you have that in the table. So I was kind of wondering if you just have some random button that says action. So instead of having the text, you just have a button that says action. And then you just do a derived field saying, I want that for every single one of my, what's it called, row. And then you convert that into a action as well. So it's kind of just, instead of having a link, you can make it a little bit more fun with a actual image.
Would it be batch actions, or is it still like single record action type thing?
Still single record. I'm
Gotcha.
thinking exactly the configure action table that is shown right now, but on a derived field. Unless you can, of course, make for every single record, you can have a action image shown directly from the data set. I mean, there's several ways to go about it, but that was kind of my idea.
I do see that, like, if you're going to do one per row, it's kind of redundant to have a button if you want to do a batch action, but it makes a lot of sense, like you said, if it's just every record would have a different value input into the action.
Yeah.
I can't wait for a button for batch actions.
Oh yeah, we have that in dashboards. We have some ideas on bringing it in Explorer, but I think we have like, I think the UI platform team is working on stuff where you can have a link widget trigger actions on everything that's selected or visible in a widget. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like a new destination, I guess. You know, link widget can open a URL, but it can also like take actions on either selected or visible records in a widget.
It can invoke them. I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, you can kind of, you can choose to render a column as anything you'd like. So it can be an image or text. And you can choose to have it open a Salesforce record. Now, it's actually not opening a Salesforce record, but you can have it open any URL. And in that URL could be an actual URL. If the URL is burnt into a data set, you could just say row.url, but it has to be, I think, absolute, or maybe even, I think there's validation that this has to have an HTTP as well. So there might be some data prep gymnastics, but I think the possibilities are interesting.
And that's a good question, Anirudh. Did with you and Arthur, did anything change as far as URLs that are permitted, like tel:// or email:// or any of the kind of things that security pooped on?
Not in Winter 21, but I think there's another thing that is on Ed Mengel's plate that he's aware about. Not sure, Arthur, if you know of any further updates other than that.
Regarding URL, the idea that you said about some data flow wrangling, I actually did that and I posted about it in my blogs. So
I have read your article. Yes, that's awesome. It's awesome that you were able to write a blog for that use case. And what we're hoping to do is to make some of those steps easier. Like I saw you did. It's like you had to make sure that it was HTTP. So trying to just see if you can loosen some of those restrictions as well.
That would be really good.
Yeah. And let me just check how we're doing on time. 12:33. Okay. Where was I? Let's do. So that was one-click table actions. Let me go back to. And then the next one was freeze, unfreeze columns in tables. So with freeze, unfreeze columns, I have an example. Let me actually unfreeze all columns as well as spill the beans. But imagine you have a value table, and by default, every column is unfrozen. But imagine you always want, like, if you're scrolling off to the right, you always want one of these columns to be frozen so they can continuously keep and understand context on which row you're looking at. So now your dashboard consumers can choose to freeze or unfreeze any column, any number of columns in a value or a compare table directly from the dashboard preview mode. So I just froze one of these columns. And I mean, it's fairly straightforward. So I just froze one of these columns and I'm able to look at that data. I can choose to freeze more. I can choose to unfreeze everything. But then I guess the important point is, yes, your dashboard users can choose to do this on a values table. But really, when we were thinking about this feature, what we saw was a more popular ask was that, hey, yes, I would like to freeze columns in the values table, but more important is to be able to unfreeze columns in a compare table, which is, we know that people use compare tables with many groupings, and by default, all the groupings are frozen. So if I'm just going to freeze it till here, but if I had created this compare table with two groupings, opportunity, name, and owner, yes, by default, those two columns will be frozen with no way to really, leaving very little room for the actual unfixed columns. And I forget if there was any other workaround. From what I remember, it's like you need to convert it to a SACL query and then override group strings and numbers, and that's how you did it, which is just unfortunate that we had to do it that way. But now with this, what we're hoping is you can choose to add what groupings you want as you're building your query, but then your users can unfreeze one or more columns. I should mention one more thing, which is I said, yes, your users and your consumers can do all this, but the dashboard builder can, of course, control what is the default number of frozen and unfrozen columns. So it's not just a user. Whenever I'm in Explorer, I have the same ability to freeze and unfreeze columns. So if whatever changes I make in Explorer, that's what will be persisted to the dashboard. So as a builder, you can go and choose the best number of frozen and unfrozen columns for your end user, and they get to still change it. And how I did this was from the header menu, but we also have another way of doing this, and I'll also explain the reasoning why. So we have introduced a new section in the formatting panel called layout. And if you click on that, you will see a couple of different options. I'll be talking about expand and collapse, but there is an option to customize the number of frozen columns, and you can choose to do it from there as well. So this is a simple number attribute in your JSON, which controls the number of frozen columns. And we wanted to have this option here just because I know that a lot of queries may have bindings. And once you have a binding, you can't really edit that query in Explorer. So we still wanted to provide users a way to go and builders to go and change it. So you should be able to do it directly from a dashboard. You can customize the number of frozen columns during edit time as well. And this is a simple number property, so it's bindable as well in case you do have dynamic groupings that are being shuffled in and out and you want to change the number of frozen columns along with it as well. So that was freeze and freeze columns. And I'll pause very briefly before moving on to the next one. All right. The next one is expand collapse. And expand collapse is basically being able to allow your users to dynamically drill in and out of different levels of grouping. So in this case, just a very basic example is that I have a query that has 3 groupings: product category, subcategory, and region. And I'm able to see the sum of sales at the region level. But if I wanted to kind of drill out and go up, then I can choose to expand or collapse any grouping level. So now I'm looking at the rolled up sum of sales from each subcategory. And I can choose to roll it up all the way till the top until I see rolled up versions of sales for each product category. And your users can choose to go in and out directly from within a dashboard. So if you have some metrics that maybe in the past you would have to use toggle widgets to dynamically change some of those groupings, this is one option that can be used as well to go in and out. And here is an example of how, again, the builder can control what is the default drill level provided on the dashboard. So in this case, what happened was I have collapsed everything when I was building the query, and that's what's being persisted on the dashboard. So this is what your end users will see initially, and then they can choose to expand it or collapse. Another thing I'll mention is that expand collapse on custom SACL query. So if you have written a custom SACL query, it is technically possible. I haven't tested out various combinations as really it depends on the query that you have in your dashboard. But I think what we're doing is we're looking for certain columns, column names. And these column names are what's generated when we enable subtotals on a dashboard. So in this case, that's one thing I forgot to mention, which is expand collapse requires subtotals to be turned on. So that's how we are able to really kind of just show the subtotals when we are collapsing. You kind of just use the subtotals that's already calculated in your query. So it's also very performant in that manner because it's pre-calculated. And we're able to just show you that rolled up version. And as you expand, we kind of start showing you the drill down version. So subtotals needs to be enabled. And today, subtotals does come with some caveats and limitations in that if you have certain query shapes, you cannot turn subtotals on. For example, if you have sorting on a dimension or a measure, you cannot have subtotals turned on. So that's why I would say expand collapse comes with all of the caveats that subtotals come with today. So if you are enabled to, if it is possible to enable subtotals, then it should be possible to enable expand collapse as well. Hopefully.
What's the behavior, or what's the visit, like the UI behavior if you've got a SQL query? Because I know you said in some situations you can or can't. What is it? The behavior is whether is the sorting issue the main determinant of that? Like, you know, like if you don't have subtotal option, then you're not going to see the ability to expand collapse type deal.
So this, I guess, is a good segue into just kind of showing how this can be turned on and off. And you briefly saw it in that same place, which is in the formatting panel. And this is at the table level. So there is a section called layout, and that's where you can enable expand and collapse. We don't prevent you from enabling it, expand or collapse, but if you don't have subtotals, or if your subtotals are not, especially on SQL queries, are not in the structure that we expect, it might be, we have not tested all of the different SQL queries, so we're not sure, but what I can say is there's a chance, yeah, that, you know, if the query is not in that same, that could be unexpected behavior, in which case expand collapse would not work on that SQL query, but you should be able to then just turn it off. And so it should not affect your SQL queries with expand collapse off.
I didn't know if it was something where like whatever that determinant is, it then grays out the ability to even choose that. Or if it's something where you can choose it, but it's just not going to work once you get into the UI. I was just trying to figure out what that means.
Got it.
I didn't think to check that.
Got it. Yeah, I think just because the SQL queries could be in numerous shapes, I know there's people who can use different streams and union it. So there's things like that, which might be, I don't think it was possible for us to check all possible options, but I think as long as it's in a certain shape, and that shape, I think one way to just check what that shape is to just create a very simple compare table declaratively using our UI and enable subtotals, and then just switch to SQL mode. And it's kind of all of those columns.
Throw a hidden space in there and run the query and save. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it kind of shows you kind of like the columns you're expecting and how we are determining which are the subtotal rows. So I think as long as those columns are present, it might be possible for us to see if this could work on a custom SQL query, but it hasn't been fully tested, at least because of the numerous shapes. We've tested it with some basic SQL queries. Like this one is, of course, a very basic SQL query. And this one actually, yes, I think there was one thing because of which this didn't make it. But the idea was that, and again, I know, Jeff, you said that it might be unintuitive to click on this, but the idea was that if somehow we could kind of have like a pseudo hierarchy widget by using expand collapse, where if everything is collapsed, and if I click on the row, then it actually only emits the first column, product category furniture, and everything is faceted by that, but I can choose to drill down and, you know, have more granular faceting. But we did run into some technical issues.
What I was going to say is, like, I think for me, this was just like a feature parity for some of the stuff that was done in Tableau, being able to have that, you know, expand collapse. Like, you go in with that executive, you don't want to overwhelm them with, you know, just gigantic Excel sheet, throw up hot mess. So you kind of like keep it minimized to make it seem simple and give them numbers they want. If they want to drill in, then they can click on the plus and expand it. I think that was one thing that people used in Tableau that I couldn't really replicate easily, as Stuart pointed out in the chat. So this will be awesome.
Awesome. And sorry, I'm not monitoring the chat yet, so please feel free to stop me if there's any questions.
We're just being stupid. I'll tell you if there's anything.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, 12:45. How much do we have all the way till 2:15 between the both of us, or was there?
You have so this meeting is normally for 2 hours, which is and you have till 2 o'clock.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I'll try to wrap up in 15, 20 minutes. So again, there was a lot of the tables. That's most of what I wanted to show. But what I wanted to do next was to just give a quick update on.
Wait, you had a data source linking. You can't skip that. You can't skip that. That's my favorite of all. That's our own, that's a 4-person's data prep. You can't skip that.
In fact, I guess I can do this first because really the example I was showing is on Salesforce Direct. So I guess I might as well go through it in that order. Nice catch, Jeff. Can't escape anything by you. Nothing can escape by you.
I'll never not see anything about data source linking. It's my baby.
Awesome. So let's see. So let me show you what's underneath the hood here. Can I move this? Yes. Great. Okay. So what I have here is I have 2 charts. One is built with an EA data set, and another is a chart powered by Salesforce Direct. So this is a live query to Salesforce and is being powered by Salesforce Direct. And again, what's happening is, because both are really different query types, we didn't really have faceting between them. So if I click on one, it doesn't automatically facet the other because it's not just because, even with EA datasets, if it's a different dataset, it won't automatically facet. You need to set up data source linking. And the same thing with having just really different query types, it won't automatically facet.
And even though if the values were different, if there was a character difference in the value name, when you emit one, it won't trigger the other.
Oh, you know what? I should test that as one option as well. Let's see if there's actually anything which is different between the both. Well, but that being said, of course, nothing will happen now. So maybe let me make the magic plumbing happen, and then we'll see what happens. So the only thing is this data set actually had 2 things: stage name, and let me confirm. Got it. So this is the so this one is the S object, and this one is an EA data set. Got it. Okay. So I want to link stage and stage name. Okay. So now I'm going to open up my data source linking connect data sources. And what we support in Winter 21 is the ability to define data source links between really any query type, if you will. So it's like Salesforce Direct to Salesforce Direct, Salesforce Direct query to EA datasets, a Salesforce Direct query to a Snowflake query. Like really just, we have kind of made it what we call data agnostic. So what I'll do in this example is we already use data source linking for connecting fields from one EA dataset to another one. But what I'm going to do here is to connect the EA dataset field to a Salesforce Direct field. So the one is stage. This has actually 2, so I got to make sure it's the right one. And on the Salesforce Direct side, I can go and choose Salesforce object, and it shows me all of the Salesforce objects that I'm using on my dashboard. So I'm going to choose opportunity and go to stage name. I'm just going to say stage name, save, and it creates that connection. And let's just make sure that, yes, it is stage and stage name. So let's try this out. Let's see if that works.
It should work. Yep.
And this, yes. So then I can click between, and now I have built in faceting between these 2 kinds of objects with these common values with clicks not code, so that you don't have to propagate faceting using bindings. The one thing, of course, and that is something we're working on in the future, is that this again only works for Salesforce Direct queries, I believe, that are built declaratively, so not like SOQL, I believe, because SOQL currently cannot receive faceting. SOQL can emit faceting, so you might still be able to click on a SOQL query and have it facet other charts, but SOQL does not receive faceting yet. So that is another thing on the roadmap, is the ability to have it receive faceting, so that all of this can be just done very easily without using bindings.
So, Anirudh, first of all, this is going to make my life so much easier. And especially now that even not just Salesforce Direct, but even static query is there.
Yeah.
Secondly, so,
awesome.
And definitely our clients are going to love this. I'm assuming this is going to work in the community and not give me some odd bugs.
Good question. I would not, I would think so as well. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. Actually, right now, our chat is full of love this, oh wow, this is cool. So people are already going gaga over this. And even is asking what is required for this to work.
What is required for this to work? So let's see. So I mean, what I did really was you just kind of have any of your data sources. It really is defined at the data source level. You just bring in whatever data sources you want, and that data source can either be an EA data set. That already works today, actually. What we added new was the ability to define links between Salesforce Direct and EA data set, or like a Snowflake live query, which I'm going to show you in a bit. So whatever you create, regardless of the data source, it should start showing up in this menu right here, connect data sources. So you may already have links set up from an EA dataset to another EA dataset. You can simply go ahead and now access all of your other data sources as well, including static queries, Salesforce Direct, and datasets. I don't know if that was the question. If it's like, if you're asking like licensing or no, nothing, like just
No, that was the question.
Okay.
And the next question he has is, do they have to share a unique field?
They have to share, the values have to be, I guess, common, because that's what we emit. The field could technically be any different name, etc. But
yeah, like
I mean,
here, your Einstein Analytics data set says stage, and the SQL is stage name. So
correct.
names
So
per se don't need to be unique for the field, but the values have to be unique.
correct. Yeah, I guess, I mean, that's what I imagine would be the most practical situation, in that you would have common values between any two fields. Maybe they are very similar fields, but they don't have to be the same field.
That value is just critical, because, for example, if you do a case statement and to create a field on the fly, I mean, obviously when you click on a bar that emits it, it's going to have a different value, so it won't line up. That's kind of like my long-term wish list. One thing that I want, I mean, if this is like super off topic, which it might be, we can cover it at a different time, but I still do not have a great example of connecting with data source linking, connecting a typical query to a static, something that's a static query. Like the only thing I've got is something in the help and training, and it really wasn't kind of like, I don't know. It wasn't very helpful to, what I was trying to do. Like that got released, was a year and a half or two ago, and I'm still trying to like look for use cases for that. Like, can I populate, can I create almost like a mini data set with a static step that just has a bunch of, key value definitions, and then link to, like, I'm still trying to, at some point in time, I'd like to know how to best use that, the ability to connect with data source linking to connect from a typical query to a static step query.
Yeah, and to be honest, I also didn't think of much in that area. But Anthony, I know you mentioned static steps, so that really kind of got my interest as well. Like, do you know of any potential use cases which either you already do, or you see how this could be helpful there?
There are a lot of use cases. So Gobi works in, Gobi is a commercial real estate utility bill management company. So one of the use cases for us is the service types. So utility can be energy, water, waste, lighting, anything, right? Anything that goes into a building. So in some cases, we need a static step which holds those values, say just 5 of those values. And instead of all the 20 service types that a building can have, I just need 5 of them, and I don't want our clients to see all the 20. So doing this is going to solve that, because now I'm joining with
what? So okay, so that's what, okay. Let me ask you this: is this kind of pseudo bucketing?
I'm doing pseudo bucketing, yes.
And filter works fine.
Yes.
Oh my God, you have to show that at some point. I've been literally trying to, like for a year and a half, I've been trying to find any scenario anywhere. And Ricky, this is a blog article too, because I cannot. It's like that was a release that just kind of flew under the, or that was a feature that flew under the radar, and it looks me in the face every day and laughs.
I'm loving the excitement here. Yes.
I have to chime in on this though, and bear with me, man. Working at home today. right now we're solving the same issue in the data flows with complex CRs rolling up, making our own buckets to show only what we want in them. And it's a lot of work and very taxing on the data flows. I can do them in my sleep now but gosh, if you could find a way to make us to be able to limit a bucket to only what we want and just put it in there with.
I asked Pete on a 2-hour trip where he was picking up like smoking, like cigarettes, out of state or whatever to save money. He couldn't even think of this. I was like, can I literally just create an array of predefined, key value pairs to save me from having to do in the data?
And even in data prep, the new data prep, it's still not that simple. It's an all or nothing. You can't say if nothing shows up, or if only this one thing shows up, we want these values, right? Like there's still no really easy way to solve it. If you would, my hero, if you can do that.
That does sound very interesting, actually.
And if you ever want these use cases that I'm talking about, and obviously everybody else here, you just ping us because we'll give them to you.
Oh yeah, like for example, you've got what's common is, so different lines of business use different data sets, but at the heart of it, they go back to the same standard objects, but they're named something different and whatever. To promote reuse, I'd like for the link widget to be able to inherit all the filters you've chosen on a page, get past that destination dashboard, and be able to, I've got it kind of working, but it requires you have to create a step from their data set. Let's just a dummy step to put on your dashboard. And then the destination dashboard has have a dummy step from yours, which isn't practical because it's just not practical. Like if something maps and you have read-only access, you should be able to only have to define like the source and point to that destination. I mean, I know why, but I feel like there could be another way to link those two without requiring a step from both data sets in each, because that's just not how it works. I think that could cut down a lot of dashboard duplication.
We want to put more work on your plate. We want to put scenarios and have you fix them, because when we train new people, or I train new people, I mean, I'm the only one at my entire company that can do this scenario for what seems like, they're like, why can't I make a bucket? A bucket or a modified bucket, right? And it seems like it should be easy to do, and it's not.
Yeah, because we can do it on
next year. Let's work on this.
Yep.
Got it. Good feedback. So I think if we do make something happen, or so like something with the static step query and like data source linking, drop me a note. I would love to see kind of like a demo and kind of talk about it as well.
Well, I think the biggest use case is for sure putting it in the UI. Like when you come with a new field name in the dashboard query, and it's like an offshoot, like you're taking all these complicated field names and wanting to bucket 3 into 1. That works great and all. In the case statement works fine, but then when you click on it, that query fails because it doesn't have those discrete values. It has it all bucketed into 1. So if there's a way like behind the scenes to unravel the bucketing you've created or chosen the UI and retranslate it back to the original ones, I think that would be huge, but it would have to be something under the covers.
Got it.
That would be a huge win for, I think, all of us, because right now, even if you create a derived dimension in the data set, or even if you create a field in SQL, and then you click on that field, every other widget that's there on the dashboard, including the filters, they all break.
It breaks because they don't have that value for that field. It doesn't exist.
Got it. So it just automatically maps it out into its components and emits those as filters or something.
Well, the best we can do right now is do that, but then turn off emit faceting on that widget so that it doesn't break the whole dashboard.
That is exactly what I do right now. I just stop faceting.
You don't get filtering, and you don't basically get to use that as a filter. It's a dead end destination widget. Just display only information.
Just don't click
destination.
That is interesting. Huh.
And that's
it's funny for it's powerful.
That's a very common.
I'm so sorry, I don't mean to do the Zoom talk over, but for as powerful as some of the things are in EA, there's some little very basic things that we still struggle with. And I can't imagine for all the new people coming on board and learning it, no, you can't do these things until you need to do it. Like there's no, considerations list for EA.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Fair
For me,
enough.
Been on there since 2015.
For me, the rule of thumb is from a feature function solution standpoint, data prep and data flow is dead to the world. So if it can't be done outside of that in the dashboard, the feature doesn't exist in the product line at all. Because that EA admin is less than 1% of our user base.
And how many rows of data do you think at a max exist in these data sets for whatever data you're working
150 million.
on? Okay.
If it's not dashboard or SACL, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Because one area of focus that, to be honest, we haven't invested too much in, and that's a conscious choice, which is all of these post-projection kind of use cases and doing that declaratively. So even something actually like bucketing, like if we did have the ability to create a calculated field directly in the UI, like you didn't have to go to data prep, you could do a calculated field in the UI so that you can control what gets bucketed into what, and then just treat it as a field and then group by it, etc. Like I know, like Tableau does that well and already has that. And I think one of the just reasons that maybe we didn't think about it initially was because of the performance impact. Is once you create a calculated field and you're like creating a row level calculation across 150 million rows, and now you want to then group by it and then do some other querying on it, there was just a concern of performance impact.
I do think I think that's one of those intelligent, like we might talk about this briefly, but one of those intelligent analysis. So when someone is creating that in the creation phase, you kind of look at like, well, how many rows, you know the data sets they've got under the dashboard, you know the data sets they're trying to use, how many rows, like what's the impact of that? And when they go to say that, you're letting them know this, this could have a potentially poor impact. You have whatever, this data set has X million rows, this has, like at least giving the warning, let them hang themselves, but you've given them a warning before they save and commit that. Because sometimes those, I tell you, the use cases where it's not a gigantic data set is going to be just like life changing versus the alternative, which is you just can't do it.
Correct. I mean, you can do it in SACL, but then it doesn't, I guess, integrate with everything else. And of course, it just scares everyone trying to do it.
Well, then though, I think like that's something that Arthur can fix for you by throwing a front end on it. That's not even a problem. I think it's that like, how do you give someone a rope but not let them hang themselves with it? Like for me, it's a lot of the data flow warning messages, like you're about to do something that propagates to blah, blah, blah. Are you sure? It's that equivalent, but here on the dashboard.
Yeah. Okay.
Until you save it and hose it, right?
right.
Then you can't host it again.
Call support. I don't know why this is hosed. I didn't get a notification. Sure.
Well, we can revert it back at least now.
Yeah.
Dashboard inspector for everything.
Oh yeah, dashboard inspector.
I'm slow.
What I'll do is I'll skip live data set because I know Arthur has a ton of good, interesting stuff lined up as well.
Oh, we appreciate this so much. I'm sorry I've been quiet up until now, but wow, this will make us be able to prep before this weekend. So much appreciated.
Awesome. And what I'll do is I'll just leave you with, sorry?
We have way too much to prep in the next 2 days.
Well, Arthur's going to have more on your plate, added more on your plate, and we'll add more to your plate. But let me just leave with one thing I wanted to share of what's coming beyond Winter 21. And that is the concept of like just more richer killer tooltips. So I'll just let hopefully the images, or these are again mockups by our designer, and I'll show you a little more realistic image at the end of what we are trying to accomplish in the next release.
Or either last time or the time before. You all met Michelle, I think 2 meetings ago.
Oh, so Michelle did get a chance to show these?
Yes.
Michelle was on the call for something else.
Got it. Then let me just show you maybe a more realistic what we're starting off with as MVP, which is, I'll just jump straight to this versus what's the possibility. But basically on a KPI widget, we're starting off with KPI widgets because it's actually it's more technically easy as well. Like on a chart and tables, people have told us that you need to be able to define a different tooltip on a different column. You can't just show the same tooltip on every column. So it's like per column. But a KPI is easy. It's ungrouped. It's KPI. So what we are aiming for is today when you hover over a KPI, you only see the full number. That's it. But we want to make it easier for you to kind of progressively disclose a lot richer information. So if you hover over a KPI, you can now be able to show custom text, and you can type this text in. And you can also reference query data from any query. So if you're familiar with the add query data button in a text widget, you should be able to now show query data from, of course, the query that the tooltip is for, but also from any other queries you want. So if you're like calculating averages in a different query, you can show that, reference that in the tooltip as well. And then,
so
of course, we
like
want
Tableau
to.
does right now.
Sorry?
This is so much like Tableau does right now. Small
yes. So small bites of it. And then really the one thing we want to do again in the end is we want you to be able to show a chart or a table to start off with. But really where I think there's going to be either maybe a differentiator or at least one of the secret sauces when Arthur talks about components. And that's what's going to lead into any component that you can build, kind of like a card. You can now show that in a tooltip. And because you can have all the pieces of a dashboard in there. You can have like a link widget, which can take actions in a component, and you just slap that component into a tooltip. And now you can have this really interesting possibilities as well. So
this is so good. Can we have this now in pilot?
Sorry?
Can we have a pilot for this?
Oh, pilot. Well, the good thing is hopefully nothing changes, but we are working on this actually in the next release, so after Winter 21. So if everything goes well, it should be without any perms.
Okay. Awesome.
Awesome. So with that, I am going to pause/stop. And Arthur, thank you for your patience. And I want to, if you want, you can, maybe you have a version of this on your screen. You can drive that and take us through all the good stuff, which I know Builder has.
Sounds good. So let's do this. Let me try and present my screen, and hopefully I can turn off video. All right. Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
Looking good.
All right, awesome. All right, thanks, Anirudh, for sharing all the cool stuff on Explorer. And let's look at what Builder has to offer for the Winter 21 release. So the first thing that I want to kind of show a demo for, and it's going to be a quick one, is the dynamic text conditional formatting. So as you all know, as part of the whole Clicks Not Code initiative and trying to make dashboard authoring easy, the team has been working on a couple of those features that you've probably seen recently, such as the targeted faceting, the dynamic reference line, the dynamic text widget, and the latest one that we've worked on is the text widget, and we added in the Winter 21 release the ability to pass conditional formatting to it, right? So right now you have a very basic dashboard in front of you that I built just for this demo. And so here I have a number widget with a query that I passed to it, just this small query right there, and displaying this number. And what I've done is I created this dynamic text dynamic text widget in which I've added that exact same query right there, right? So you can see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the conditional formatting section of my number widget. I'm going to add a rule, and let's do something very basic to say, like, if it's smaller than 1000, let's go red. And if it's bigger, let's go green. Let's do this. All right. And if I apply, ta-da, the magic happens. And so now the dynamic text widget also picks up the conditional formatting. So
and what happens
pretty cool.
If the number widget?
What's that?
What happens if I remove the number widget? I don't want the number widget to remain. What will happen?
So the widget, I think the widget is fine, right? The query is what matters.
It still remains. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So So
You just saved me an hour of work, which I'm supposed to be working on tomorrow. And the idea is we don't want the text to get colored. We only want the number to get colored.
Yeah, I see.
This reminds me of, like, Arthur, this reminds me of one use case that I think that's like, is with this especially, what I wanted to do is, like, if you have a single required field, the ability to just put the word all there, like if it's like to say, like if this query is grouped by, and then like if there's no specification, to have it say all, versus, if you do have single required where it's a specific value, you can put that value. But that whole, like, being able to display those words, to me, it's so, like, it's important from a from a personalization perspective. Like, if you do, like, if the default is showing all of it, being able to use that conditional text. Right now, you kind of have to come up, like, you have to do some kind of crazy trick with a static query to put, like, have the key be all, and then the values be like every single one, versus there being, like, I know that's a bigger issue, but that's another use case that's associated with this that I ran into. Like, you've shown a number, when you go in to show actual dimension values, that's where this comes into play.
I see. That's interesting.
And I can go into it later, but it's really just like, the default of all. Like, when you go into a global filter, or go into global filter, and you know how, like, to undo a selection, a lot of times you can click on all to select everything, and then click on all again to deselect everything. And then you have the words all showing up there. I want to be able to inherit that all verbiage, for if I haven't selected anything yet, if it's not a single select. So
yeah,
required.
I see what you mean. Just kind of like using text widget to kind of show the users what's happening. Yeah. So that was kind of like a small thing. Adding on to this, so couple things to keep in mind. One is, the main thing is, there's only one source of truth, right? So right now I'm using this query. If I go and edit that conditional formatting that I've just set, and instead of green, I say, like, I want this to be blue, and I apply, like, this is gonna get reflected, right? So I do see, and I already see some of you guys say, like, well, what if I want to have the number like display in one color and have the text in another color? Well, in that case, there's only one solution, is to actually, like, duplicate your query, or like have an exact same one that you reuse in the text widgets. One thing to add to this is that we've actually, because we did see the use case for it, we've added the functionality to do this conditional formatting right when you're adding the dynamic elements. So right now, if I go and select that element, and it's going to look a bit funky because I already have it there. But if I choose it, now you see at the bottom here, we have a conditional formatting section where it will either display the existing one, or you'll be able to add some. And so right here, it's displaying this one. So if I change it back to green and I hit apply, boom, it's back, right?
Nice.
You are saying
right, so
in clicks, not code.
Yes, that's the goal. All right, so coming back to the slide, the next one is the next feature that's coming to you guys in Win 21 is dashboard components. And first question is, what is it, right? So you can think of dashboard components as kind of this container widget that has pages, right? It's kind of a mini dashboard in which you're able to create, with the use of pages, you're able to create those rich interactions that some of you might be familiar with and might be building through pages and dashboards today. One issue with that is that when you create those kind of hide and show, like reveal interactions with those pages, you pretty quickly run out of pages, right? Because it's quite costly. Every time you want one of those interactions, well, you need one page, and as soon as you have 10 interactions, you're done, right? So with this, you're going to be able to build those interactions much more simply, and I'll go into the demo and kind of show some of those, but you can think of creating dynamic measures changes, or dynamic grouping changes, or dynamic chart changes, right? The other big use case that we wanted to go and solve with this one is maintainability and reusability. And how are we going to do this? Well, I actually forgot to mention that those components are going to be a new widget type. And what this will do is once you've created it and saved it, you will be able, if you have access to it, to reuse this in every single app and in every single dashboard that you want, right? So what that means is that you have now this centralized asset that you can easily change, updates, and reuse everywhere that it fits. So enough of me talking, because I'm sure some of you are like, what is he talking about? It doesn't make any sense. What is this new kind of container? So let me show you, because that'll be easier. So right now what you have in front of you is just a basic dashboards with a bunch of pages. And you can see on the left-hand side right there that there's this new widget called components. And so when I drag and drop it on the dashboard grid, like any other widget, you can do two things. You can either create a new component, which is what I'm going to do right now, or you can select an existing one, right? Find a component with this picker right there. So you can do it from the properties panel or from clicking in the middle of it. So right now I'm just going to create a new component. And what this is going to do is it just open up a new tab right there next to my dashboard. And it looks really similar to what you're familiar with, which is dashboard designer, but we're currently in component designer that you can see here at the top and saying this is a new component. So FYI, this is a pilot feature in Winter 21. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to go turn this on. But obviously, because it is pilot and it's actually a really and I'm not trying to brag or anything, like it's a complex feature in the sense that we're pretty much touching every area of dashboard building. And so because it is complex, we're taking our time to build it. And in this first version, it will have some limitations that we can kind of further discuss. But right off the bat, you can see some of those, right? So if I look back at my dashboard, this NLQ, this global filter, the layout buttons right here, they don't appear in the component editor at all. And so we can talk about it a bit later on, kind of what are the limitations now and what are the ones we're working on to kind of free and add as features. But for now, what I just want to do is build something pretty straightforward. So I'm going to add a number of widgets, and as you can see, this works exactly like a dashboard widget. So you can create a widget, add a query to it, go into Explorer, modify it. And so I'm also going to add just a nice little chart, and I can actually just add the same query to it. That'll be fine. And what I'm doing here with this query, I'm going to then save. But what I want to take your attention to is the fact that this dashboard this component has its own grid, right, and its own number of columns. And this doesn't really relate to the dashboard where you're going to place it in. What you really should think of is that the widgets is the width of this component, right? So right now, on purpose, I placed this number widget to take half the width, and this chart widget to take the whole width of the component. So now I'm going to go ahead and save this and call it new component demo. And what this will do when I go back here, I'm going to bring it in using the picker, which is new components demo. And now in this container of widgets or component widgets, you now have this new component. And as you can see here, the grid is different. I have much more columns, but what it has respected is the fact that this number widget is taking half the width and the chart widget is taking the whole width, right? All right, so this was for the whole creation part. Now moving on to the second part of it, which is this component picker and editing capabilities. So right there, as you've seen, I was able to use this picker to import any of the previously created one. And one thing that I want to touch on right there is kind of the question that I'm sure some of you will is how do you access those components? Where do I see them? Who has access to them? How does it work, right? Like this whole security aspect. So the thing, it's pretty straightforward. Components are similar to Lens dashboards, stories, or apps, in the sense that sorry, not apps. They belong to an app. So they're saved inside of apps. So when I actually like go back to my component and I hit save, as you can see here, you're saving to an app, right? And so because of that, it works exactly the same way. So if you have a viewing privilege on a component, you'll be able to view it when it's embedded in dashboard. So, and to have viewing privilege, you need to have access to the app where it's saved, right? And same goes for editing. If I have a dashboard and I want to modify a component inside of this dashboard, I need to have access to the app where the component is saved.
Arthur, a quick question regarding security.
Yep.
Is it going to be, okay, let me take a step back and say people have already started going gaga over this, and Jen has said she's so on this pilot, so am I, and I'm pretty sure Catherine and Stuart will also say the same thing, that we want this now. Even also says so am I. Okay, and to the people who are seeing this for the first time, a new blog on Ricky's Salesforce blog channel has been posted today about components. So you can go there and definitely start taking a look.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh, my question was basically about, sorry, I forgot. My question was basically about wherever we are creating the dashboard, does it have to be in the same app as the component?
No, so that's the whole part of reusability. And where I was kind of going next is, so you're going to be able to reuse components inside of dashboards that are in different apps. The only thing that matters is that you have the access to the app where the component is. And so let's take a very basic example where I have app 1 with a dashboard, and inside of that dashboard, I create a new component. And so I save this component inside of app 1. And now I go into app 2 and I create a new dashboard, and I'm like, all right, like that would be awesome to be able to reuse all the work that I've done in this component in app 1, right? Well, as long as I have access to app 1, I will be then able to embed and go find that component and then bring it into my new dashboard in app 2. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Awesome. So let me actually just display this, and I'm gonna do it with the second part, or actually, let me just do it right now. So right now I'm gonna embed here, let me embed the new component that I've just created, and let me create a new dashboard. All right, and in this dashboard, I'm gonna add the component here. I'm just gonna select the exact same one, right? So now I have two dashboards referencing the same component. And what I'm gonna do is go ahead and save this guy. And one thing you would be interested in doing is editing this, right? And say like, all right, I have this new dashboard. Oh, all right, cool. So I'm in my new dashboard and I want to reuse this guy, but let's say that I think it would be cool to actually slightly tweak this, right? So let me go ahead and edit this component. And so this opens up, this was gonna open up a window that I had just closed on purpose because there's a new model that shows up now. And what this model tells you is that you're about to edit a component and it's telling you the dashboard that are saved and that are already using this component, right? And you then have two options. Either you want to edit the original component, which means that any changes you will do on this original component will then be applied to all the listed dashboards here. Or you can make a copy of it, and by making a copy, you're just creating now a new version, a new component, and that you can use in this dashboard and reuse in others. But this won't affect any of the dashboards that you have here, right? So for the demo, I'm just going to edit the original, and let's say I want to add a text widget saying, I don't know, how awesome is this new component? Widget. And I'm gonna go ahead and save this. And when I go back to my dashboard, it would be awesome that it would have refreshed. It's not the case yet, and this is something that I'm pushing for, and that we might make it for GA. But for now, what you can do is hit this refresh content button right there. And if I do so, what that does is that now the text widget just appeared, and it brought back the new version of this component, right? It's kind of reloading. And this prevents you from having to reload the whole page, right? So if I go back here, same thing, if I refresh the content, it appears. So same thing, if you were to save this dashboard and then quit the whole, or close the tab and then reopen it, as soon as you open the dashboard, it loads up the latest version of the component as long as you've saved the component, right? Everywhere, that every dashboard that where it appears, upon refresh, it loads the new one. All right, so that was kind of the reusability aspect. And now I wanted to touch on the, question.
Right, before you go further, there are a few questions that are popping up.
Oh, sure.
So if you put components on a page that have global filters, does the component have to have the dimensions that the filters refer to? What happens if it does not?
Okay, so that's a good question, and that's actually going to bring the first very big limitation for the pilots, which a lot of you guys are going to say, well, this is not awesome, and completely understand. The first limitation, which is pretty strong, is that those components that you embed in your dashboards, they're, for the pilot version, they act as a black box. So any filters, any faceting you have on your dashboard, it won't get passed to this component, right? And we are aware of how strong of a limitation that is. It's not like we did it on purpose, as I was saying at the start, because it's a pretty complex feature. This part of the code is actually gonna affect a lot of things. And so we've started already working on it for the pilot, but we didn't get to a point where we felt confident into enabling what we called kind of this shared runtime capability, where you're gonna be able to have interactions between the component and dashboards where it's embedded. So the quick answer to the question is that for now, when you have a global filter on your dashboard, nothing is going to get through this box, right? Like this is not going to receive anything. To give a bit more information, we're working now on the second version of components. So this is planned for Spring 21. And in Spring 21, there will be a possibility for this component to, and it will actually be by default, for components to be listening and passing selections and filters from one to another. And so in the case where you have a global filter, and this global filter is on the dashboard and you don't have any data, well, I mean, did I get the question right? I might have gotten it wrong, but if there's no data or dimension like on the component and you're passing a global filter, I mean, nothing will happen, right? If you do have some data and the runtime is shared between global filter and the components, if it's relevant, if you have measures and groupings that are based on the global filter you have in your dashboard, those will then get passed to it, right? It will act like a widget, a normal widget. And kind of pushing this a little bit further, because I kind of see where this is going, and we're right now like having discussions around this, which is, what if you have a global filter on your dashboard and on your component, because this will be possible. In that case, what we're thinking right now is that the dashboard component, and then I'm talking on the exact same field or grouping. In that case, what will happen is that the parent dashboard will have precedent over the components one.
Awesome. Piggybacking on the question that Stuart had asked, what happens if we copy the component and now it becomes a new component, right? Will it work on the new component? Will the global filters work on the new component?
So the global filters from the dashboard?
Mm-hmm.
So you have, I mean, so So like what you're saying is like right now I have a component and I edit this guy and I make a copy of it, right?
Yep.
So I have one component and another one, and I have a global filter on my dashboard. So in the pilot it won't work, but in the version that we were shipping in spring 21 that we were hoping to go GA, safe harbor here, it will work. Like if you, as long as you, it will act like any charts that you have here. Like it will act like a normal chart widgets, and selections like filtering that you have on your dashboard will get passed to it if you wanted to.
Great. And Stuart, I think rightly pointed out, I assume that the black box answer also applies to the dashboard's theme, color, design, etc.
Sorry, I missed the end. The black box
This question
design.
is, black box applies to dashboard's theme, color, design, etc. So as in you cannot color the component's background as the widget background as
yes,
dark brown.
So that's correct, and it will be. So you can think of this as like it's a container widget right now, so like, and it will stay like this for everything related to theming. So the theme that you will get in your component widget will be inherited from the background that you can set in the default grid here on your component designer. So here, if I decide to make the grid black, or actually let's make it red because this will stand out from the dashboard. I go here and I refresh this guy. Oh, do I have enough grid space? Why is this not showing up? Have we covered? I can't remember if we've covered it. Well, let me check something.
Do you need to save it? Do you need to save the?
Yes, that is right. That should be it. And this is a bug. No, this is a bug. Right now it's not working. I filed it. Let me refresh this dashboard. Did I save the dashboard? New dashboard. Let me try this. I can't remember if we covered that or not. So we didn't, because it should have displayed in red. So it's not displaying right now. And what, oh yeah, this is where you control it. I think I was wrong. Yep. So you can control this at this level. The widget style stuff are, it's not, I was wrong. I couldn't remember this part. It's not at the components designer level, but it's at the dashboard level that you can choose the kind of theming.
Yep, and there is a feature request that has already come up, which is I would love to be able to have the component adopt the theme, design, background, color, text size, text color, etc. from the parent dashboard that you put it in. I think 99% of us would say the same thing, instead of being on the component to let it adopt the theme from the dashboard level.
But so right now there's not even a way for you to apply this theme to every widgets on your dashboard, right?
Yep.
So I think to address your feature request, we'll start with this. And so this is actually part of like the roadmap stuff. I don't think I was going to talk about it now, but because we're touching on it, it's part of summer 21 release that we're looking at. So this is like pretty far ahead, but it's actually an innovation project that the Anirudh's teams worked on, and that developed and my team is looking to pick up, which is the ability to apply a theme to your whole dashboard or to individual widgets, and to also have the ability to customize this theme, right? This color code. And so the first part of this first version would be like mostly for chart widget, right? Like the ability to choose colors. But yes, I know you guys are looking for even more than this, is like the chart, the text size and chart title sizes and all those things. So we'll start with doing it for like the whole dashboard, and I think, and when we do so, I think the question of having it applied to the components will be something we'll address as well. So thank you. All right. Any other questions? I'm not tracking the chat.
No, not at this point. Thank
Okay,
you
cool.
for the details.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to take your attention right here to the fact that I've created I have this component widget right here, and I have a nav widget on the dashboard that controls the pages of the dashboard, right? And I also have a nav widget on the component that controls the pages of the component. So if I go into the component editor, I've created those pages, right? And so let me go back to my main dashboard and go into view mode. And so what I want to showcase here is how easy it is to create those rich and dynamic interactions using components, right? So there's no coding, no JSON modification needed at all. What I've done here is I have a very basic chart that's just grouping on my accounts per country, and just using the pages of this component, what I've done is I'm now switching the visualization type and displaying this as a map, right? So this aspect is something we really wanted to help with, and kind of the ability to dynamically change those chart types like groupings, measures. And so if I move to another tab of this component, what I've done now is instead of grouping per country, I'm actually grouping per industry, but I also changed the grouping, the chart type to be more intuitive here for each of those industries. We're showing like the objective, right? Like how far, like have we gotten in terms of accounts based on a goal that we want to actually achieve, right? And the last viz that I have here is saying like I've now changed it completely to just like a simple graph where I'm seeing the evolution of my accounts over years, right? So displaying here kind of the power of pages on components now, and the ability that you will have to create those interactions, but at kind of like at a container level, right? Like you're now able to have those places in your dashboard where you might want to display some similar data, but in different ways, right? Just being able to show this in different visualizations, some of them might make more sense, but also being able to just use pages to potentially like go into more details or show like data that's more relevant to specific personas, right? So that was for the rich interactions, and now diving into the last part of it, it's around reusability and kind of what I was sharing right before this. And so what I've done here is I've created this kind of KPI charts that you could imagine reusing across your different dashboards. So you could build like this revenue card where I have the revenue per year per country, and I have the evolution of it with this graph and the goal that I want to reach with this kind of bullet chart. And so what I've done is I've created one for the revenue, one for profit, one for volume. And what I'm using this to kind of showcase is that, well, you can imagine reusing those card widgets like in multiple of your dashboard, right? Like just having it, being able to have like this number like across multiple dashboards, and or having, you know, a KPI that's based on a specific formula that your company computes every year, and that's really relevant for your whole all your set of financial dashboards. And you know, like 1 year, the way you compute this KPI now changes, right? Like there's a new tweak in the formula, and your executive team asks you, hey, can you go ahead and change this? Well, instead of having to go in every single dashboard that has this KPI and actually like searching for this, because it could be quite painful to update it, what you can do now is simply go ahead and edit this and edit the original component, and whatever changes you'll make here will then get applied to every single dashboard you have, right? So in terms of maintainability, this is a huge step forward in helping all the dashboard developers to do those changes and update dashboards in a really easy and quick way. So here, like, for instance, if I'm just going to make something very basic right here, if I wanted to say, like, instead of revenue this year, I want to say, like, revenue for 2020, like, best year ever, and save this. now if I go back to my dashboard and that's my components. Sorry, if I go back to my dashboard and refresh the content, it now displays it, right? So it's a very easy to do to maintain your dashboards now. Let me pause for a second and ask if there are any questions.
No, this is extremely useful, and those who are working within the field of accounts and finance, and even us, because it's an utility bill management platform. So anywhere where you have the quarterly reports, the annual reports, the half-yearly reports, I can see so much use of this.
Yeah. And even if you can think of like, you know, those filter headers that you have that you just use in like all your dashboards or reuse that are very similar, you could just have a component, and I'm talking when like it won't act as a black box anymore. You could just be using a component with just this set of filters that you just reuse everywhere, right? Rather than having to rebuild it every time.
Totally.
So awesome. All right, so I have what, 20 minutes left. So let's look at the roadmap, and hopefully we should have just enough time if there are any extra questions. So what I've just presented to you guys is dashboard components, EA components. I actually need to update this slide because it's now we're Tableau CRM components, so probably need to change this up. But it's part of a bigger initiative to turn content developers into Lego builders. And the idea is you've got it as like being able to reuse the content that you've built multiple times rather than having to rebuild everything every time. And we're doing it for EA, and some of the other components that we've been thinking and that we're working on right now. First is Lightning components. So the ability to bring into Studio, EA Studio, some Lightning web components that you could have built in Lightning platform. Another one that obviously is not a far stretch is Tableau components, right? Like being able to embed a Tableau visualization inside of Einstein Analytics, just inside of one of those component widgets, instead of saying, you know, like pick from like existing one and create, we could have access to like another tab where you choose Tableau component, right? Okay, so onto the other exciting stuff. So talking about this ability to choose more things for components. One thing we've been thinking of and doing is improving this library, right? I was showing you the small picker, like drop-down list where you can choose your existing components. Something we've been thinking of is enhancing this to make it a full kind of gallery where you could pick your components from. And so in pairing with this idea, we were thinking of also adding pre-made templates, right? Like component templates. And so I'm sure maybe not all of you, but I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with the fact that we currently have app templates. We have dashboard templates. Well, if we kind of follow the trends, we could imagine having component templates, right? Like just helping you fast start this dashboard building journey, leveraging like component templates that are accessible inside of this picker and this kind of gallery where you manage all your existing components and kind of pick from like, you know, this latest like components that's been shared from your team or a pre-existing one that's been built for the sales industry, and you have a bunch of cool looking KPIs that you can be reused. All right, so the next one is something I've heard since I've joined, and I've had a lot of like a lot of customers ask for this, is the rich text editor, and just having the ability to add font or text markup, something that could look like this. So we've been thinking of it, and I want to do something here. I think if we do something, it will start with the text widget, because now the text widget is dynamic, so it does cover the member widget as well, and those two are the most used widgets. So it would cover a lot of the use cases where you're trying to do some cool things. Right there, you're seeing like full rich text editor with like size, bold, like ability to add links and such. We'll probably like take baby steps towards this goal, but this is something we're thinking of doing, and are hopefully going to be delivering on the roadmap in the upcoming releases. Next is the ability to do copy paste across apps. I actually don't have any visuals here because it's pretty straightforward, right? Kind of pairing when we're doing the research for dashboard components. Some of the things that came back was reusability and the ability to edit things and kind of copy things that you've previously created in order to not to have to rebuild. And copy paste functionality was something that seems very basic, but we do not really do today. At least we don't do it. We do it inside of a dashboard, but not between dashboards, or it's actually quite complex. And so being able to copy a widget and the query inside of it with the conditional formatting, just carry everything and paste that in another dashboard that could be in another app, I think would be something that would be really relevant to you guys. Moving on to something we touched on is theming. So I didn't change the subtext there. So this is what it would look like, and we touched on it a bit earlier. So just the ability to build some things inside of EA that you could then reuse and apply to your whole dashboard at once, or at a per widget level, right? And so those are some of the designs that we worked on. So here you would be in the properties panel, you have like a bunch of pre-made themes, and some of those already exist, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with them and probably tired of them. And so you have like a light dark version of it, and what we would add there is first the ability to apply to the whole dashboard, not only at a widget level, like per widget, but also the ability to customize it, right? Like to be able to choose every single color that you want the chart to be taking, right? And then being able to apply this, I was showing at the dashboard level, but you can also do it per query or per widget. All right, and the last idea that I kind of want to share with you guys is something that you might have seen some of our competitors do, and it's this idea of kind of, I don't want to say like it's a new way of visualizing data, and kind of it kind of looks sometimes like a table, but just improving the way we show rows of data, right? And so it could look like this. And I haven't shared all the kind of previous steps to get here, but what you can imagine is it kind of is similar to a component where you would be building the first kind of card, where in this case you have an image widget, you have some text, the region as a variable, and then a KPI and a small chart, kind of a bullet here showing you how far we are from the goal. And all of this, all of those widgets inside of the first line, the first box that you're seeing, are powered by the same line, the same query, right? So you can imagine all those as columns of a table, and one having the image stored as URL. You could have the name of the rep, the region, the KPI, and how far we are from the goal, right? Like the percentage. And what this will do is that once you've dropped this query, this whole table onto this widget, it will then populate every single row of data inside of one of the small cards that you've configured, right? And you can imagine having this like in multiple layouts, like this is the vertical one, this is the horizontal one. But just it's kind of like this innovative and different way of showing rows of data that we've seen some of our competitors do, and we could totally see ourselves doing. We have all the functionalities. It's just a matter of implementation now. And I mean, I personally feel like those look pretty sick. They're awesome, and I think it would add a lot of value of, you know, how we can visualize data now. And I think that's it.
These are some extremely cool features that are coming up, and we cannot wait to see them more. Catherine says, yes, I can think of a lot of use cases for the card widget. Love it. So do I. There's so many use cases I can solve. can that goal metric be different? For example, could I put a sparkling trending graph there instead?
In the card widgets?
I meant to
Yes.
say sparkline.
Okay.
Yeah, here,
Yeah.
as long as it's powered by, so we would have to see, like, it depends. I think it would have to be, because the way they were thinking of making this work is, you know, like it would be powered, like every single widget, in this case, like this, like bullet chart is powered by one number in a column, right? Like an 86%. So you wouldn't be able to power just with a number, like a whole chart, like what you were saying. I can't remember what type of chart you said.
Line
You would
chart?
need, yeah, you would need more than just a number, right? Because it's on two axes. So in this kind of fashion, you probably wouldn't be able to. However, there's a really high kind of cross use case, like functionality here between this and dashboard components that I've just shared with you guys. Because you could totally imagine building this with a component, right? Like this is just an image widget. You have then two text widgets, a number, and a chart, right? And in this case, you would actually be able to build whatever chart types you want. The difference is that the components don't repeat over every single line of the table. So you would lose that functionality. It's kind of where there's the big differentiator.
Yeah, when I look at this chart, it screams out to me like a stock ticker or something like that, where I'd see the name, like a graphic, the name, and then that value there could be the trend line or a spark line or something there. It looks awesome, but I could see that being like a stock ticker sort of thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's great feedback. I definitely think like when we look at this, I'll make sure we keep this in mind and think about how we could implement it, right? I do think if we were to, it would kind of be like additional kind of parameters that you add in so that you can power this. You know how like right now when you have a very basic chart in Explorer and you wanted to like make it over time, like if you just select the chart first, it asks you to fill in the y axis or x axis. Well, we could probably do something like this, right? And like saying like, hey, you're missing a grouping or a dimension here, so that we can display this chart. I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, and one of the things that I love what the Artos team is doing is they're building architecturally the basics and the foundations that we want to leverage across all these different ways of presenting this data. So for example, the tooltip that I showed, which shows a chart, of course, if you're hovering over a particular row in a table and you show an account card, you of course want that account card to be filtered to that account. So in a way, you are showing a different grain of data. That account card might also show like a trend or a spark line of maybe the how the cases are trending for that account. But that allows you to show a different grain of data versus what's in your table. So in the same way, the card widget, like initially what Arthur showed is basically being able to access and with limitless flexibility, decide how you want to render your tabular data. But technically, like one of the ideas I think, which even the tooltips, whatever we built with the tooltips allow, is that imagine if within each of these cards, you could actually drag in a separate sparkline chart that you had built, and it would automatically filter it for that particular a person. So I think there is something possible there. Like because you already have each card being built as a grid, you could drag in any other widget, and we would automatically facet it or add the right filters to that specific person. There's definitely a lot of great possibilities.
That would be an excellent solution to the platform.
Yeah, because one of the things was when we thought about, hey, we want to make our tables richer, and then we thought, yeah, let's add a feature to add spark lines and images and charts within the tables itself. And then at least what I realized was, that we just add a lot of configuration options, and then users, I'm sure you would want the level of flexibility. Some of you might want it aligned left, right, top, right, different size, different color. And we had to provide all those configurations. Instead, we thought, hey, we already have something. It's called the dashboard grid layout. And let's make it really easy for our users to control how they want each row of that data to be presented. And then we can, build on those constructs.
So not all of us are aware of 232 plus. I understand that's Salesforce internal code.
Oh yeah.
When is 232 plus?
So this would be after. So right now we're working on winter. This would be potentially spring to. Wait, am I saying something stupid?
Yeah, so 230 is spring 21, 232 is summer 21.
Yes.
And,
so that would be potentially summer.
Okay. Okay, awesome. So thank you very
Thank you,
much
Anirudh.
for taking the time and showing this to us. And before we end, anyone has questions, concerns? Or anything else you want to ask Arthur and Anirudh? Catherine says this was amazing.
Hey, Sayatani, this is Kevin. I don't know if this is redundant or not, but as it relates to pages being on a particular dashboard, how many components can be added to that?
That's a good question. So right now, quite transparently, we are still working on this, and it's part of the last things we want to fix. There will be limitations. We yet to have test performance because right now we're pushing all the code. So in the pilots, because it's limited and it's controlled by myself, there's no limitation on the number of components you can fit in a dashboard, or and the number of pages per component is 20, like a dashboard. So pretty restriction free, but it is going to change for sure, because with the later changes that we are applying, especially around this shared runtime functionality, it's going to have a perfect impact for sure. So we're planning on measuring this in the upcoming weeks before wrapping it up and seeing how strict do we need to be on those limitations. We are thinking of having, I think we were saying 5 pages on a dash per component, and potentially, I don't remember if we've set on a number of components per dashboards, but I think it would be around 10-ish, I think. But I don't want to say something stupid. It's still up in the air, and we have to decide based on the performance test that we're doing. The idea is that we're going to limit it strongly now and slowly increase that number as we're improving the performances.
I have this might be a hard question to answer, but when you think about that card, and if I've got 20 people represented on that card, is that 20 queries happening, or is that one query just represented on the card?
It's one query. Every widget is powered. You can think of it just as a table. You have one query powering that table, and it's just another way of representing it. If we were to do it with this card widget, if you were to do it with a component, you would have like 20 queries, one query for each of those little cards, right? But in this case, it's powered by one single query.
Thank you. Okay, that helps.
Thanks.
Awesome. And we are still receiving how amazing it is and mind blowing, and all kinds of people are already going gaga about what you guys are doing with dashboards and what all life-saving things for us.
Yeah, touching on something that you mentioned when I was presenting, if you guys are interested in the pilots, please reach out to your AEs. And there is a pilot record right now, and so there's a bug with it. I'm like, it's on my to-do list very urgently to fix this, but there's a pilot program that they can nominate you for, and I'll then be able to, there's kind of like 2 conditions. One is on like the legal side, making sure like there's an agreement, and then I just need the org ID to go turn the feature on. But yes, if you guys are interested, reach out to your AEs, and they can look for this pilot program. It's called Einstein Analytics Dashboard Components.
Great, great. We will do that. You will receive a lot of requests for it, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Anirudh. Thank you so much, Arthur, for taking time. I know it's extremely late for you, Arthur. And,
that's all right.
Thanks everyone for joining. We will do this. Next one will be in early December. So see you guys then. Thank you.
And
Thank you so
thank
much,
you as
guys.
well. And thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you for the opportunity. And I appreciate your time as well. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.